Carol had spent the better part of her life believing that everything was as it should be. At 30, she had built a seemingly perfect world, a warm downtown apartment, a loving marriage with Ronald, and a sweet daughter who filled every room with laughter. After 5 long years of trying for a baby, Carol's hope had finally been vindicated when an ultrasound confirmed that 2 pink lines were visible on the screen. The tiny heartbeat, the gentle flutter of life, had made her feel as though all her past heartbreaks were finally being rewarded. Yet that joyful moment soon dissolved into a nightmare she could scarcely have imagined. On the day of the ultrasound, Carol had been enveloped in a cautious excitement. After so many years of longing and disappointment, her own body had finally offered proof that motherhood was possible. As she left the clinic, her heart soared with anticipation, but as she walked out into the corridor of the medical center, her bliss froze into terror. Down the hall, as if in slow motion, she spotted him, Ronald. The man she had believed was her devoted husband was standing there in plain sight, wrapped in an embrace with a pregnant woman. Ronald's hand rested tenderly on the woman's belly, and the closeness between them was unmistakable. It was not a friendly hug or a casual greeting. It was intimate, deliberate, and it shattered the illusion of the life Carol had known. Carol pressed herself behind a vending machine, her heart hammering so fiercely that every thump echoed in her ears. The sight of Ronald with a woman who was clearly expecting left her reeling with questions. Who was this woman? What secret was Ronald hiding? Every instinct screamed that she must know the truth, even if it meant following him to uncover his lies. Clutching her purse tightly and swallowing down the bile rising in her throat, Carol steeled herself for what she was about to do. With trembling determination, she pulled out her cell phone and ordered an Uber, instructing the driver with a voice that wavered between fury and sorrow. "Follow that blue sedan, please." The driver nodded silently, and soon the car merged into the parking lot of the medical center. There, Ronald was helping the pregnant woman, who appeared to be in her early 20s, with luminous eyes and flawless skin, into a sleek car. The scene was so disturbingly tender that Carol's chest ached with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. Once her Uber pulled up, Carol slipped into the back seat, her mind a tumult of conflicting emotions. She repeated her instructions to the driver as they set off. "Follow that blue sedan." The driver complied, and they trailed the car through quiet streets until Ronald pulled into the driveway of a modest, unfamiliar house. "Stop here," Carol ordered, her voice low and resolute. "I can walk from here." She parked the car a short distance away and crept toward the entrance of the house. Every step felt like wading through treacle as memories of happier times mixed with the bitter taste of betrayal. When she reached the front door, it swung open suddenly, revealing Ronald. His face was a portrait of shock and guilt, drained of color and weighed down by regret. "Carol?" he managed to whisper, his voice cracking with emotion. "What are you doing here?" For a moment, Carol's fury wavered, replaced by an unexpected surge of resolve. "I think that's my line," she replied, stepping past him and into the foyer. Inside, in the warm glow of a softly lit living room, stood the pregnant woman. The young woman's eyes widened in recognition as Carol entered. "You're Carol!" she gasped, then laughed, a sound that rang strangely familiar. In that moment, as she crossed the room and pulled Carol into a hug, the young woman's warmth and gentle demeanor clashed with the betrayal Carol felt. For a brief instant, Carol hesitated, unsure how to process the unexpected embrace. "What on earth are you doing here?" Carol demanded, her voice trembling as she sought answers. Ronald quickly placed a hand over his face, as if trying to hold back a torrent of explanations. "Carol, please, let me explain," he pleaded, his tone desperate and strained. The pregnant young woman, whose eyes still shone with an unanticipated light, stepped forward and asked softly, "You're pregnant?" Her question was laced with genuine excitement rather than malice. Carol's heart sank further as she realized that this revelation was even more complex than she had feared. Nodding numbly, Carol could only manage a quiet affirmation. The young woman smiled and said, "That means our kids will grow up together like real siblings." The statement hit Carol like a sledgehammer. "What?" she stammered, her mind reeling. Ronald, now visibly shaking, moved closer to both women. "Carol," he said, his voice heavy with a mixture of relief and dread. "I never told you because I didn't know until recently." His confession, delivered in halting, pained tones, left no room for misunderstanding. Ronald had fathered a child with another woman long before he met Carol. The young woman introduced herself as Anna, her voice gentle and empathetic. "I'm Anna," she said, reaching for Carol's hand as though seeking solidarity in the midst of chaos. As Ronald began to explain the tangled web of his past, the truth emerged with crushing clarity. He confessed that before he met Carol, he had been in a relationship with Anna's mother, a woman who had since passed away from breast cancer only months before. In his desperate bid to forge a relationship with his now adult daughter, Ronald had hidden his connection to Anna, hoping that time would smooth over the betrayal. "I was trying to build a relationship with my daughter," he admitted, his voice wavering as he spoke of the missed opportunities and the painful secrecy. "And now I'm about to become a grandfather. And a father." His laugh was hollow, punctuated by sobs that betrayed his inner torment. Carol sank into a chair, her legs trembling as she struggled to process the revelations. For years, she had believed in the sanctity of their marriage, and now the foundation was crumbling beneath her. "I thought I was so sure," she managed to say, her voice barely audible. The revelation that Ronald had doubted the paternity of the child he was now expecting shattered her trust completely. Memories of missed dinners, of secretive phone calls and unexplained late nights began to coalesce into a bitter portrait of betrayal. Anna, sensing Carol's despair, reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "I'm sorry you didn't know," she murmured, her eyes filled with a sincere compassion that softened the severity of the moment. "I've been waiting for you to understand for a long time." Ronald, still standing between them, tried to offer an explanation, but his words fell flat in the heavy silence that followed. As the three of them sat together in the living room, a surreal calm settled over the scene. Ronald's confession, though heartbreaking, brought with it a strange clarity. Carol's emotions oscillated between anger, sorrow, and a reluctant understanding that the truth, however painful, had finally emerged. "I'm not here to take sides," Anna said, her tone gentle yet firm. "I'm here because I needed to know who my father was, and now I know. But I also know that this situation isn't just about blame, it's about the choices we make and the lives we build from them." For a long while, the three sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The living room, bathed in the soft glow of the evening, became a space of confession and quiet reckoning. Ronald's eyes, red-rimmed with regret, flickered between Carol and Anna as he tried to bridge the gap that his actions had created. "I never meant for this to happen," he whispered. "I wish I could go back and change things, but I can't. All I can do now is try to fix what I've broken." His words, though laced with remorse, could not mend the shattered trust that lay between him and Carol. After what felt like an eternity, Carol stood up, determination slowly replacing the numbness. "I'm sorry," she said, voice steadier now, "but I cannot be with someone who can abandon me with a note and a package when things get hard. I deserve better, and so does our daughter." Ronald's face crumpled, and for a moment there was nothing but the sound of quiet sobbing and the steady beat of a broken heart. In that moment, it was clear that the relationship had reached its end. Anna, who had grown to share a deep connection with Carol during the brief confrontation, offered a small, understanding smile. "Maybe one day we can build something together, a new family, even if it isn't what we expected," she said softly, her words a gentle consolation amid the wreckage of old promises. Ronald reached out as if to reconcile, but Carol stepped back, her resolve unyielding. "I won't come back to a life built on secrets," she declared. The painful truth was that Ronald's betrayal, no matter how complicated by the past, had fractured the foundation of their shared life beyond repair. With a final look of sorrow and regret, he fell silent. In the days that followed the confrontation, Carol began the slow process of rebuilding her life. She left the apartment, taking Grace with her, and sought refuge in the support of close friends and family. The memories of that fateful day, when she had secretly followed Ronald and discovered the painful truth, haunted her dreams, but they also became the catalyst for a new beginning. Carol realized that she had been living in a fragile illusion, a carefully constructed facade of trust that had crumbled under the weight of hidden truths. Determined to forge a future built on honesty and resilience, she set about reconstructing her world piece by piece. Over the next several weeks, Carol found solace in the small acts of self-care that gradually restored her sense of identity. She redecorated her new home, choosing warm colors and soft textures to replace the cold emptiness of the past. She joined support groups and began therapy, where she learned to process the betrayal and to rediscover her inner strength. Through it all, Grace remained her constant source of light. The little girl's laughter, though tinged with confusion over the changes, became a reminder that life could still hold joy even after heartbreak. As time passed, Carol's determination to embrace her future grew stronger. She focused on creating a stable, loving environment for Grace, one where honesty and kindness were the cornerstones. Though the memory of Ronald's betrayal would always linger like a shadow, it no longer controlled her life. Instead, it became a lesson, a painful yet necessary chapter that had taught her the value of self-respect and the importance of not compromising on trust. One cool autumn day, as Carol and Grace strolled through a nearby park, the gentle rustling of leaves underfoot and the soft glow of the setting sun provided a backdrop to a quiet conversation about the past. Grace, with her innocent curiosity, asked questions about the changes at home, and Carol answered as honestly as she could without burdening her daughter with too much sorrow. In that moment, Carol realized that while the scars of betrayal might never fully disappear, they could serve as reminders of her strength and resilience. Word of the dramatic events had spread quietly among their circle of friends and neighbors. Some whispered about the mysterious note left behind and the shocking revelation of Ronald's double life, while others marveled at Carol's courage in the face of such profound betrayal. Slowly, Carol came to see her experience not as a mark of failure, but as a transformative moment that had freed her to embrace a life defined by her own values. She resolved to open her heart again when the time was right, but only to someone who would honor the trust and commitment that she now knew was essential. In the months that followed, Carol's world gradually began to take shape anew. The legal proceedings for the divorce proceeded without further drama, and though the wound of betrayal would remain, she learned to view it as a catalyst for growth. With Grace's laughter echoing in the new home they were building, Carol embraced the possibilities that the future held. She immersed herself in her work, joined new social circles, and even began exploring creative pursuits that had long been set aside. Every day was a small step toward reclaiming her identity. Every smile from Grace a reminder that she was loved and valued beyond measure. And so, life continued. Carol's journey, marked by the bitter pain of discovering Ronald's secret and the subsequent heartbreak, eventually transformed into a story of empowerment and renewal. Though the memory of that Tuesday evening would forever be etched in her mind, a moment when her world shattered into 1,000 pieces, it also became the turning point that set her on a path to rediscover her own strength and build a future where honesty and self-worth reigned supreme. In time, Carol learned to appreciate the unexpected twists that life sometimes brought. She realized that the end of one chapter, however painful, often paved the way for a new beginning. With every passing day, as she watched Grace grow and thrive, Carol found herself filled with a quiet determination to move forward. The betrayal that had once seemed unbearable now served as a lesson in the importance of truth, and as a reminder that no one was ever too broken to rebuild a life filled with hope and love.